Hello, this is Mrs. Brown, and today we're talking about probability of simple events. And we're going to start with some vocabulary. So probability is just the chance that something's going to happen. Like if I'm flipping a coin, the probability of, say, flipping heads. What's the chance of that happening if I'm doing like a coin toss? If you look at a simple event is one outcome or a collection of outcomes. So again, if I'm flipping a coin, one outcome for that simple event would be getting heads. Okay. Or another outcome, of course, would be getting tails. So outcomes are just the possible results. Okay. So when we express probability, it's from a number from 0 to 1, or we can use like percents, 0 to 100%. And it's basically on a continuum. Down here at 0, we have something that's impossible to happen. Over here, we have 100%, or at 1, which is certain. It's definitely going to happen. And then in between, you've got 50-50. So at half, you have it equally likely to happen as not happen. And as you look in here, the closer you get to 0, the more unlikely it is. The closer you get to 1, the more likely the event is to happen. So if you have something that, say, has a 95% chance of happening, it's really likely to happen. But if you have something that has a 7% chance of happening, it's not very likely to happen. It's very unlikely is what we would say. Okay? It still could happen. It's just not very likely that it will. So when we're looking at probability, in order to calculate it, the probability of an event happening, like rolling a 2 or flipping a coin and getting heads, the probability of an event, it's the number of favorable outcomes. So favorable outcomes is a fancy way of saying what you want to happen. And then the number of possible. So all the different things that could happen, the probability is the number that you want over the number that actually could happen. Okay, so let's take a look at some examples. If we're looking at a regular number cube, the probability of 1. So a regular number cube, okay, that's just what you think of as a die. So you could have a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, a 5, or a 6 when you roll, okay? So what's the probability of getting a 1? Well, one side is a 1, and there are 6 sides altogether. So the probability of getting a 1 when you roll a die is 1 out of 6. What's the probability of getting a 7? Well, there isn't a 7. So you have a 0 chance out of 6. And so that's an impossible event. Okay. The probability of getting an even number. Okay. Well, let's see. 2 is even, 4 is even, and 6 are even. So 3 out of the 6 possible outcomes are going to be even. And we would simplify that to 1/2. So the probability of getting an even number when you roll a die is getting 1/2. Okay. The probability of not 4. So in other words, anything but a 4. Okay. So I don't know, maybe you're playing a game and if you get a 4, you lose. So what's your probability of getting not a 4? Well, these are all the possible things that can happen that are not a 4. So 5 out of the 6 possibilities are not a 4. Okay? Let's take a look at some more examples. Okay? All right, let's say that Greg has brown, black, yellow, blue, and red shorts, and he chooses one pair at random. Okay? So what's the probability of getting brown shorts? Well, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different colors. And out of those 5 different colors, only one is brown. So the probability of him getting brown shorts is going to be 1 out of 5. The probability of pink. Okay, well, he doesn't have pink shorts. So again, that would be a 0 out of 5 probability. So it's an impossible event unless, of course, he goes out and buys some. Not red. So if you look, we have black shorts, we have brown shorts, we have yellow shorts, and we have blue shorts that are not red. So that means there are 4 out of 5 possibilities that are not red. Okay. The probability of red or yellow. So he could have either red or yellow. So that's 2 out of the 5 pairs. So again, looking at that situation, the total number of possibles, if you have like a list of stuff like this, you're just counting how many there are, and that would be what you would end up with. Now, let's say I have this spinner, okay? If you look, it's divided into 6 equal sections. Each one is a color, so the number of possible sections is 6, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The probability of getting orange is 1 out of 6. The probability of getting green or purple, well, there's 1 green section and 1 purple section, so that's 2 out of 6, which we would simplify to 1/3. Okay. If you look at this spinner, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the probability of getting a 4 would be 1 out of those 5, because the 4 only occurs once. The probability of not a 4, okay, so that would be 1, 2, 3, 4 of them are not a 4, because you get a 1, 2, 3, or 5. So 4 out of the 5 are not a 4. So again, taking a look, the number, like if you have something like a spinner, how many sections is the denominator? If you have something like a number cube, there's 6 different faces. If you have something like a list, you're counting up how many things there are, and that's how you're kind of determining your probability. Okay. We got one more vocabulary word, and that is complementary events. Okay. And basically, this is 2 events where one or the other has to happen. It must happen. And they can't happen at the same time. So an example would be if I took this spinner that has 4 sections, the probability of red and not red are complementary events. Because the probability of red is 1 out of 4. And the probability of not red, well, everything's either red or not red. So 1, 2, 3. So one of those 2 events would happen, and they are complementary because they're going to add up to 100%. So 4 out of 4 is 1, and 1 is 100%. So complementary events have to add up to 1, their probabilities. So red and not red would be an example of that. Okay. If you go for flipping a coin, when you flip a coin, it's either going to be heads or tails. Now, those of you I can tell right now are like, well, what if it lands on its side? We're not talking about, if it's like land standing up, okay? If it lands on one side, heads or tails, okay? So the probability of heads, well, when you flip a coin, you can either get heads or tails. So there's 2 possibilities, and one of those is heads. The same with tails. There's 2 possibilities. One of them are heads. So a half plus a half equals a whole. So those are complementary events. Okay. One more example of this, if you take a number cube, the probability of even number. So remember, a number cube has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on it. So the probability of an even number, 2, 4, and 6 are even numbers. So there's 3 out of 6, which simplifies to 1/2. The probability of an odd number, the odd numbers are 1, 3, and 5. So that would be also 3 out of 6, which simplifies to 1/2. So these are complementary events because 1/2 plus 1/2 is 1 whole. And if you're even, you can't be odd. And if you're odd, you can't be even. Okay? I hope this helps, and have a fabulous day.